Hello everyone, I'm Nnamdi Odipo and thanks for joining us tonight as we begin The Mandate. The Mandate is a sequel to The Ballot, but this time around we will be speaking with winners that emerged from the elections and during the elections in an attempt to get a sense of where they are in terms of the big assignment which comes with governance and public service, and not just winning elections. So over time, we will especially engage the governors-elect and others, of course. Remember, we're live in Abuja, and this is The Mandate. The Independent National Electoral Commission on Monday, March 20, declared PDP's Caleb, Barrister Caleb Mutwang, winner of the Plateau State governorship election, having pulled a total, I do have it somewhere, a total, having scored 481,370 in the March 18 governorship election in the state. And having fulfilled all the requirements or the requirements of the law, he was returned elected. Thus his emergence as governor-elect. Joining me now in the studio tonight is the former council boss of Mangu local government council area and governor-elect of Plateau State, Caleb Mutwang, Esquire, barrister. I should say welcome very much to The Mandate. It's good to have you here. We did try to get you during the ballot when we were doing an election programming, but of course it's good to have you finally come on The Mandate. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Nnamdi. Thank you, Nigerians. It's a pleasure for me to be here tonight. I
must also congratulate you on your emergence, having won the elections. I did notice that you have repeatedly mentioned that you plan to run an inclusive government. I'm not sure in what context you plan or hope to work with opposition groups, if that's part of the plan. Perhaps you can begin by telling us to what extent you will be willing to work with other groups, maybe opposition groups, especially in Plateau State going forward, if you do intend to run an inclusive government like you've touted.
Thank you, Nnamdi. By saying we want to run an inclusive government, we mean that all the critical interest groups represented on the plateau should be given a sense of belonging. By that we mean people of different ethnic nationalities, people of different faiths, people of different demographies, the women, the young people, and we just want to be able to ensure that everybody sees himself as a stakeholder in the Plateau project. Okay. And this is what we mean by inclusiveness.
And not opponents, not political opponents. Well, at all. Because if I get a sense of, running a broad-based government,
yes.
And I think I listened to part of your acceptance speech, just shortly after you were declared, and you did say you extended the hands of fellowship to other contenders in the election. Are you saying there's no room at all for, perhaps it's called on the national front, it's called a government of national unity. Do you have any plans at all, no plans at all, to co-opt any other person or contender from any other party at all?
Why not? They are stakeholders in the Plateau project, like I stated.
Okay.
And we've extended our hands of fellowship to everyone that cares to work with us. For us, after elections is governance. And I've said it in my acceptance speech that I'll be governor of all, and not just a few select few. And so I don't want to call them opponents. People who have been on the other side of the divide, we can always find a common ground around which to walk for the interests of the people of Plateau State.
Okay.
And therefore, for me, I do not discriminate against anyone. I do not have any phobia against anyone. I think as much as you have value to add to the Plateau project, you're welcome on board.
That's quite laudable. I'm sure you also plan to hit the ground running. You've made allusions to that. How early do you plan to begin work And what sectors have you perhaps identified as requiring urgent attention? Are you likely to target only areas with quick wins and perhaps move on to the more difficult parts later on?
Well, naturally, thank you, Namdi. Naturally, you know that once you come into government, we take over May 29th. There are definitely some things we should focus on. And we, like you said, we hope to hit ground running. We are making very assiduous plans towards that. We would soon set up a transition committee that would interface with the government and as well to take stock of what is on ground so that we can really have adequate information as we take off. But as we take off,
yes,
I also know that given the excitement that our election generated, our period of honeymoon may not be too long. So we are planning, of course, that there are things we must do tangibly that our people will believe that we have come at a good time and we mean well. One critical issue we must give immediate attention to is the security challenge. We must restore confidence in government, the confidence of the people that government means well for them, that government is looking out for them, that government is determined to protect them. And we would then be able to interact, with various stakeholders in terms of security management and see how we'll be able to show up the security presence of the state, to ensure also that people begin to have confidence that they can come into Plateau at will and do their business.
Now, what other sectors perhaps do you intend to also look at? Of course, I understand how critical it is to look into security just almost immediately as you get in. Are there perhaps others with some low-hanging fruits, that you could easily get quick wins, that you're looking to also focus attention on?
Of immediate, a sector that will get immediate attention is the agricultural sector. We come in May 29, the rainy season is already on, and we would need to be able to put in some measures in place to safeguard the farming season, to ensure that productivity does not go low. We would be looking at how to be able to help our farmers with better inputs at better prices, and so that they can be able to ensure a good harvest in the coming season. We'll look at how to be able to also put in structures in place to plan for the 2024 farming season. These are things we would need to do immediately. One, I can tell you, for example, how do we harvest rainwater to ensure that we can expand the agricultural season beyond the rainy season into the dry season in terms of irrigation. These are measures we need to take as soon as we come in.
And perhaps because like other agrarian communities and states that in parts of the country, Plateau also suffers the issue of wastages in terms of produce, lack of course arising from lack of storages. Is this perhaps an area that you already have plans to tackle, just so Plateau as a state is able to address or redress the issue of wastages when it comes to produce?
Yes, thank you. The issue of wastages when it comes to produce is a very critical matter, and what we would need, one of the plans we have is to expand the value chain of agriculture. And in expanding the value chain, it means you can have clusters of businesses around every value chain. And one of the value chains has to do with storage. We hope, apart from what government can do, we hope to also give incentives to the private sector so that they can also develop capacity for storage of produce. We are looking at taking the issue of PPP very seriously and seeing how the private sector can partner with government to ensure that we can be able to reduce the wastage in terms of storage of produce. It will require some long-term investments, I must be honest with you, but we will see what we'll do in the immediate run.
You know, in the course of our conversation, in the course of this program, we will need you to set some timelines to some of the targets you've identified, but that will be down the road, somewhere down the road, just before we round off our conversation. But you know, I wanted us to talk about something that I consider quite germane. A lot of Nigerians actually do, especially people who've been to the plateau, who love the plateau. I mean, it's been in the past for decades, it was known as a place of peace, but not so much in the recent past. I mean, aside the division or seeming division that politics or the elections may have caused, I mean, the plateau has been inundated, or you know, has been deeply affected by ethno-religious conflicts and clashes. I mean, resulting to rising tension, or you know, tension in parts of the plateau, even even for somewhere as central as the metropolis. I mean, I know there have been attempts over the years, even by the current administration, to create platforms or structures for peace and reconciliation. Would it perhaps be consolidating on this structure? You have something or a unique plan in your own kitty to address this issue?
Thank you again, Namdi. I think leadership is key to resolving every challenge. Very true. And what we have promised the people of Plateau State is that we're going to bring the leadership that is trustworthy, a leadership that is seen to be fair, a leadership that is seen to be just and equitable, and we plan to deploy that immediately. I think one of the things that has exacerbated the situation on the plateau is the fact that sometimes the leadership is perceived to be parochial. Now we intend to shed that and be able to demonstrate to our people, irrespective of creed and language, that we intend to carry everybody along. So we hope that by doing that we can break some of the artificial barriers and fears that have been created that have often resulted in these conflicts. Now, that is one dimension. Okay. The other dimension has to do with the issue of the rule of law, dealing with criminality as it is. Oftentimes, we hide criminality under the guise of religion. We hide criminality under the guise of ethnic nationalism. For me, these are things we must tackle headlong. We must come back strong on the rule of law, and criminality must be dealt with as criminality, and so that it can serve as a deterrent to those who want to stoke the embers of hatred and what have you. And so we'll be walking the talk in this regard. We'll be leading by example by the grace of God. It
will be good to see that. I mean, that's part of the function of leadership.
Yes.
I mean, showing example and inspiring others to followership. You know, you've talked about insecurity. You've talked about agriculture. I'd like for us to look at the linkages between insecurity, agriculture, and youth unemployment in the plateau. Okay. You know, apparently you can't make progress in one area without giving just as much attention to others. Otherwise, you run the risk of always having to begin all over again. What is the plan here for you?
Okay. There is a great linkage between insecurity, agriculture, unemployment. Like you said, it's pretty clear. When there is insecurity, nobody can walk the farm. Nobody can go to the farm and hope to return safe. So we must create the enabling environment, the security for even agriculture to be practiced, to be carried on. Now, why the agriculture is not carried on, you're going to discover that the activities that boost the economy are also not there. And so naturally you will have a smaller space for employment. Now, one of our plans is to attract the young people back to agriculture. And the way to go about this is to introduce technology, is to introduce science, as it were, technology. The days of farming with hoes are gone, and the younger generation would not want to go into such unnecessary labor. And I believe that even with technology, we can get better yield in the agricultural sector. So it's very key, and I told you about expanding the value chain of agriculture.
Yes.
So that with every cluster, within every value chain, there's a cluster of activities that can generate employment. And I believe that it is only that the youth can find space to operate. But before we guarantee all of that, we have to secure the environment.
Very, very true. You know, I will be monitoring, as of course, other Nigerians as well, especially the media, to see how some of these issues you're throwing off would play out. Can I also get your take, or rather, I know I did a quick look at your blueprint. You seem also quite invested on healthcare delivery and education. Jos, Plateau State in the past, Jos, as a matter of fact, is known to be a place of learning, maybe not as much as Kaduna. Maybe that can be debated or contested. But, I mean, what are your plans in this area, education and healthcare?
Yeah, thank you. Generally, you know, the social sector is not a profit-making sector, but it's a critical sector to our lives. And so one of the things we must do in order to boost the healthcare sector and the education sector is that we must be able to generate better income for government. So we'll be looking at how to increase the internally generated revenue base of the state, because it is only when we do that we can deploy resources adequately to those sectors.
Creatively, new methods, how do you intend to do that? What creative measures do you already have?
Well, what I can tell you, first of all, before we deploy the creative methods, first of all, is to ensure that the loopholes are blocked. We ensure that all the leakages are blocked. And then we can improve on the collection system. And we'll be able to put necessary enlightenment and incentives out there for people to see the need to pay taxes. Okay. But critical to boosting the IGR is, of course, the expansion of the economy. Once the economy contracts, IGR must drop. For us on the plateau, the 80% of the IGR comes from payee, which means that if salaries in the public sector are not paid, there is no tax that comes into government. Only about 20% of it is generated from commerce and business. Now we intend to grow this in leaps and bounds. Where you are asking for timelines, we believe that we should be able to, within the next 6 months after takeover, to be able to get the 20% to about 30%, and gradually, you know, within the second year to grow up to 50%, and we would keep ensuring that the graph swings upwards.
You may want to throw in tourism there somewhere in the mix, because it's also a money maker, was a money maker for the plateau in the past. Do you perhaps have plans to to revamp that sector and make it a money spinner, perhaps?
Absolutely. It's one of the key drivers of our economic plan, tourism. But you know that critical to tourism is also security.
And that is true.
Without dealing with security, we cannot be able to attract people to the tourism sector. But I can tell you that the potentials for tourism on the plateau are huge. And we would be leveraging on that. And particularly, we want to partner with the private sector in that regard, because we've realized over the years that even a facility like a games reserve is difficult for the public sector to manage. So we'll be looking at how to engage the private sector to be able to manage this more efficiently, and hope that we can be able to generate better income from that.
Very quickly, I'd like to move you along, but just to our next segment, which is where we set our timelines and ask you to pick the targets yourself. But just before we do that, I noticed that you have been getting congratulatory messages from some of your challengers. You do not like the word opponent, so I'll say challengers. I noticed that of the Labour Party sending, a congratulatory message to you upon being declared declared winner, and a few others. But of course, we know there are some aggrieved persons, so some parties still remain aggrieved over the outcome of the elections. How do you envisage administration in Plateau State for the next 4 years, especially when it comes to getting support from the people generally, and not just those who voted for you?
Yeah. I can tell you that the celebrations on the plateau following the
I saw pictures of masquerades dancing in Mango.
It goes beyond people who voted for us. People have suddenly come to terms with the reality that, look, we approximate the dreams and aspirations of the people of Plateau State. And I want to place on record the kind gesture by the Labour Party candidate, Dr. Patrick Dakum, who immediately sent in his congratulatory message. And I believe others are on the way, because we are Plateau people first and foremost. And when all is said and done, our interest is about Plateau and for Plateau. And therefore, as we get along, we're going to be able to expand the space for others who may even have stood on the different side of the divide to come on board, as long as we know they have value to add to our journey. And at the end of the day, it is about the interest of Plateau.
Your Excellency, I would like to quickly move you along to our next segment. Like I said, it's called Ticking the Boxes. But now, I mean, for our viewers who are familiar with Ticking the Boxes, we have a slight twist to it. Now we have 3 segments which are basically timelines and 2 options under each of the segments. And my guess is Excellency Governor-elect of Plateau State will be giving us targets that aligns with his vision or that aligns with his timelines. Ticking the Boxes is up next. So a quick reminder that Ticking the Boxes this time around will provide timelines for our guest, in this instance the Governor-elect of Plateau State, and these timelines will range from 100 days in office to 4 years in office. I will just ask the director to put that on the board real quick. That's it there on the board. Your Excellency, give us very quickly 2 key targets that you think you can achieve in 100 days.
In 100 days, although I'm not too keen with such timelines,
I get that, but yes.
In 100 days, I can assure you that we would be able to at least stabilize the salary payments.
So salary payments, number 1.
Payments.
Second option?
Second option?
Yes, salary payment number 1. Second option?
Second option, we will try to ensure that we improve on the security situation on the plateau.
Improve security in the plateau. So we'll say improve security, option 2 for 100 days. If we'll quickly have that on the board. Let's go to option 2, 2 years.
In 2 years' time, we should be able to improve IGR.
Improve IGR.
At least 50%.
50% increase in IGR for 2 years, option 1. Then option 2 for 2 years.
Secondly, we'll be able to improve agricultural input.
Agricultural input. That's
agricultural output.
Output rather. So we say agricultural production.
Yeah.
For 2 years,
in 2
option
years,
2, agricultural production.
Yes.
So we'll go finally to 4 years, and option 1 for 4 years. What do you think you would have been able to achieve in 4 years?
In 4 years,
2 major targets, yes.
2 major targets. One is that IGR should have hit 80%.
80% increase in IGR, option 1.
Secondly,
my graphics personnel is mixing that up. Agricultural production is year 2, option 2 under year 2. If you would just quickly change that, year 2 under, and then for 4 years we have 80% IGR increase, and then option 2.
Option 2, we would have been able to also do massive improvement in infrastructure.
Infrastructural development, 4 years, option 2. My graphics personnel is kind of slow in imputing that, but okay. We will put that on the board shortly. We would like to thank you, Excellency, for coming on the program tonight. We wished you, I would on behalf of the NTA, wish you good luck. You should be presented with your certificate of return sometime tomorrow or Thursday at the most, according to the release released by INEC. We'll be monitoring events, not just with regards to that, but of course also on the plateau. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you, Nigerians, and God bless.
And that's it for tonight. The mandate begins officially. Do join us same time. Oh no, not same time. I beg your pardon. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so Wednesday will be 10:30 p.m. Join us on this ride as we interview winners from this year's governorship elections, especially. So my name is Nnamdi Odipo. I'll see you again tomorrow as we continue on the mandate. Bye for now.